I'm very honored to have my next guest. You folks have to listen to this amazing guy from France, Arnaud Saint-Paul. Listen to his background as a philanthropist and award-winning serial software, finance, and social impact entrepreneur for the past 20 years. Living between LA and Paris, he went through a major awakening at 13 while having a successful career in finance and technology across continents. He's been traveling throughout the world to study the different religions and philosophies and his relentless quest to understand himself. I love his life purpose to open billions of hearts and help them find harmony inside and out. Thank you so much, Arno. I can't wait to hear about your opinion and philosophy on what parents should do to, I think, be heartful leaders. I love that terminology. And what do you think parents should do more of and less of so that we can create more harmonious relationships, between parents and their kids?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, number one. And number two, and for this amazing introduction. Um, I also created a foundation to help children to become philanthropists, practice sustainable financial literacy, and with the idea and the premise that if we have children that live through empathy, compassion, altruism from a very young age, will change humanity for forever. And I think I would love to live in a world that is that way, right? So the the reason I'm talking about that is that for me, we are born with these qualities of the heart, and it is through education, through identification to society, to our family values, to all the different aspects that are happening in our lives, that we slowly lose, as we slowly forget part of ourselves, and lose ourselves in the maze of the mind. So, and that starts to happen at about 7 years old,
Hmm.
really activates itself around 12. And then, then starting at 12 years old, then the beta waves in your brain are activated. And then it's just a matter of confirming what was learned between before 7 years old. So from a parent's perspective, what can we do? I think one of the things we can do is learn from our kids, uh,
Yes.
because they are, in the end, again, when they are very young, they are that heart. They are these raw essence, not raw, this essence of love that we are as well, but we kind of forgot as adults. And maybe there is a lot of amazing discovery to be made for ourselves as parents, number one, and then and therefore potentially a respect between my kid and myself. And because our kids, we see them be born and then grow, and they are part of ourselves, right? I mean, there's no way around that. They reflect an aspect of me in the world from their own perspective, obviously. And it's really, in the end, some kind of a dance between him and I, or her and I, for that
Hmm.
matter.
Hmm.
um, and to be able to see as an adult, it's a lot easier to see than as a kid, obviously, to see that dance of that come and go of something that is being expressed by my kid, by my child, and me trying to find the right answer, and to guide him or her on
Hmm.
her path, on her journey, is um, a day-to-day exercise to find the right rhythm and the right flow for him or her to grow, right? So how can we be the guardians of that environment where the again, throughout the day to day, what happens in school, the little issues that the kid is making at home, bringing about havoc sometimes to the home. Yes, obviously, and that's part of life expressing itself at its best. How can we be these, these space providers, but not from a physical space, but more from an emotional one in that case, so that they find certain limits because it is needed for one to blossom, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you're planting a tree, right? You're putting a seed, but the seed has to be surrounded by something to be protected at first. Then as it grows, then you put a bigger environment, so then it becomes a magnificent tree. So the same thing happens with our kids. And we see it when they are little babies as well. We are a little bit a small crib first, and then we go with that. So the same continues to happen until they are 20, 25, 30.
Well, even older than that, right? Because I think sometimes we have a hard time letting go. What do you think is the fears that parents have in, trusting? That's the whole thing. I think if we don't trust, that's when we become almost controlling, or we fear letting go, right? Why do we
Yes.
fear that?
So there are two aspects in your question. Very interesting one, by the way. The letting go or the not letting go is quite much tied to the parent's identification to its role.
Mm,
So, in other words, I'm a father, for instance, and I'm really keen on being a father, and therefore I want to continue being a father and to be super active. I don't know if I'm helping my kids to soccer game or whatever, just
yeah.
to give an example. And and so I want to continue that. I cannot let go of that role. Doesn't mean that the role disappears, it just transforms. But I have
Mm,
hard time to change that image of myself. Okay, so that's the biggest block, and mothers have the same issue, and
mm,
more so because it is tied also to their own, uh, well, one, to motherhood, and two, from a physical standpoint, it also has impacts, right?
mm-hmm.
So it's a bigger transformation for women and mothers, but this is the major culprit there, and obviously, we want to protect our kids, but we're not there to either to shield them from absolutely everything. So they have to cross the street at one point or another, and at some point they do it on their own,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not there for that to happen. So indeed, there is a trust that is needed. At first, it's a trust that we instill in the kid,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, by default, they are trustworthy, and we are just trying to give them the limits of society so that they don't hurt themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, we need to trust the trust we have put in them, right?
Yeah.
Because if not, what's the use? Or is it because, again, I am clinging to my identification, to my role, and therefore I don't want to let go and control,
That's
etc.?
insightful because I think a lot of parents feel like, well, I don't know if they're prepared. I don't know if I can trust them because what if they, make this monumental mistake?
It's a fair assumption. However, if we don't trust them, then there is no way they can show that they can be trustworthy, right?
Yes. That's like the
So
million-dollar question because we want to trust, but then sometimes if kids, they appear to be non-trustworthy, but we have to let them make their own mistakes, right?
they
How do
do.
we let that go? Sometimes it's heartbreaking.
Yes, but the thing is, we talk about the life of Hard Knocks uh,
Yes.
as being the best master there is. Well, it's kind of true. It is out of what I call the contrasts. So, in other words, it's out of the crises, and we're not necessarily talking about a big thing. It could be just an armed leg or whatever.
Mm-hmm,
Uh,
mm-hmm.
it is out of that so when there is a contraction of a certain emotion, in that case, that is birthed an amazing human being. It is also true, right? If it's everything was super paradise kind of thing, right? Uh, you had a very flat being that wouldn't be as entertaining or as inventive or as creative as he could
Mm-hmm.
have been if he has gone through and you see it when you look at the biggest characters in history or even the recent ones. Usually they have had a very hard childhood,
Mm-hmm.
and because of that they were able to actually create a role, a self-identification that was so strong that they were able to innovate a lot and change the world in so many ways. So, not saying that we need to, let them go. Although, if you look at countries like Asia, for instance, kids at 5 years old live in the street, not in the street, but their mother lets them do what they want, and they come back
Yes.
from home and they're happy. So, or South America or many other civilization. So maybe we need some common sense sometimes and trust that and not trusting our kids is also not trusting our universe in the sense that we are not we need to control because we are paranoid a little bit, and
Yes.
we start from the assumption that something will go wrong, which cannot be further from the truth if we allow it.
So the key is allowing it then.
Oh yes, very much so. And at first, because I'm afraid and I do not trust, it will again happen again and again.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I should have not trusted in the first place, yes, but at some point it will disappear, and actually very quickly if I'm really behind that. And that's really and it's a key not just for parenting but for oneself. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. I'm here. I have a vision of myself. I want to create this or that, or going to the office, whatever is the vision I have. And the sooner I trust, the faster it happens. Always. So
Yeah, the what
I
if the negative what ifs, right, get to us.
what if I choose consciously from now on, having a certain discipline at first, maybe, of instead of when I see that I'm going into the paranoical way, into the
Mm-hmm.
fear, what if I choose love? In other words, expansion. In other words, okay, I know I'm afraid, it's okay, I'll accept it, and now I'm going to allow myself to live another experience, one where the world is going to come and support me and nurture me and bring about a the perfect environment, instance, situation, conversation that helps me to grow and gets me closer to my vision,
Isn't it
right?
amazing once you start trusting too? Like you said, you allow and then it just
Yeah,
materializes. Like you said, if you
of
allow.
course. Of course.
So I love what were you mentioning? The maze of the mind. I'm just curious. I know we don't have much time, but at 13, that just was so impactful. I mean, can you share briefly? I mean, you said you went through
Yeah.
that
So,
enlightenment at such a
I
young
mean,
age.
yeah, it's, the way reality works is through our parents, and so in my case it was through my parents. So our parents, society, school, anything that happens in our lives is there to come to you, and you ask yourself the question, is it for me or not? Most of the
Mm,
time there's not even a question. It's by default, yes, this is my truth, right? But we
mm-hmm,
always have the possibility to say this is my truth or not. So in my case, when I was 13, became evident that the truth that was offered to me, in this case related to the presence of God in church, and was no, it has to be in me, in nature, in everywhere. It doesn't make sense otherwise. And so that was some kind of a breakthrough, in the sense that all of a sudden that inner truth superseded what happened, what was offered in the world around me, by the world around me. And so that brought me to a journey or a quest, looking to answer the question, who am I? And that started then. And when I was 16, 17, I started to read the Bhagavad Gita, the Kabbalah, the Bible, and so on, and trying to decipher what is that human experience that I'm having, and how does that whole work. And but beyond that, I had insights that were coming to me and saying, well, this is that way and that way and that way, and that's what I would see in the books afterwards. So let's say that the engine was started.
Yes.
And then I went into studies, traveling a lot, and then started to discover energy healing, helped a lot of people with that. And the rest is history. That brought me to my epiphany of helping people opening their heart. And so on that journey I am now.
Wow. What is the one thing maybe parents can do, something so simple that can allow both their hearts to open as well as their children?
I mean, connected to their children, I believe that parents most likely already have their heart open. Uh, so again, maybe if you have young children, listen to them, look at them from that angle of them having a a deeper consciousness of themselves than you as a parent, and they have a access to their whole heart before they forget some of it. So maybe that's an idea that can be helpful, to explore and experience, right? It's all about experience all the time. And besides that, maybe finding a space where sometimes I'm able to experience the moment. I know it's kind of difficult because it's like a wheel. You have to you
Hmm.
have to run all the time. But finding a moment of simplicity where, so I have the three S's: slow, simple, and silly.
I
So
love that. We don't do that enough though, don't you think? A lot of my students, I'm an educator. I had my tutoring business for what, 23 years, and I noticed that a lot of the parents just focus on the next thing that needs to be accomplished, the next activity, the next project. So, how do we even be conscious? Is the last question, to be slow, simple, and silly, because that I think will be life changing for parents and children, that their connection.
I'm gonna share with you a secret, but
Okay.
you don't repeat it to anyone. Okay. So we all have a very, very special instrument that we all have with ourselves. But nobody knows. So that's why it's a secret. And it's simple because you only have to use a finger with it. And so each time you are ready for that, and before you go into the three S's, as you mentioned earlier, you can, if you choose to, push the pause button.
Ooh.
In other words, taking the time to, okay, I push the pause button, and maybe it's 1 minute pause button, I don't know, or maybe it's 10, and where I practice the three S's then for that time or a bit longer. But we do have the pause button, we can. And when the pause button is pushed, then we enter into a new space of conscious choices.
Ooh.
So where I'm not reacting to something, I am there, I'm present, and I start to decide how I want to act, whether it is applying the three S's or doing anything else. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes so much sense. I think a lot of us do fast forward, fast forward. We forget
Exactly.
our pause button is broken and we don't even realize, hey, it's there, you know.
There, yes, it
Even
is.
with kids though, it's like, you know, when I look at show them a book, they want to go to the next page instead of really pausing and immersing themselves in the present. Maybe
Mm,
it's just society that we're like, okay, what's ahead? Like my student, I
yes,
can't wait till November 21st. And I'm thinking, why? Because, you know, some exciting movies coming up. Oh, I can't wait until tomorrow. But no one says, wow, let's just pause and cherish this moment.
yes. Well, that's our
Wow.
role as educators and parents, to bring them to that place and ourselves in the process.
Yeah, I think we forget too because we're so caught up in
Absolutely.
everything that we
And
forget we need to pause to role
yeah,
model.
and our kids are following what we are, so they are
Yes.
mimicking who we are. So it's mimetism. We're educating that way. So yeah, we should start ourselves first.
I love that. That is powerful. I am going to make that my next parenting tip because I think it's so simple, but sometimes we forget. I think what you said, slow, simple, and even silly. You know, like that sense of humor can really change that darkness or that
Yeah,
frustration into just a smile, just in like you said, in moments, in a second.
exactly. And by the way, we do have mugs and t-shirts with Simple City and
Oh,
on our website. So if someone
so
wants
share the
to
website with us.
Tapuat, tapuat.com. And it comes from an Indian tribe called the Hopis. It means eternal rebirth. And so, yeah, on that website, you'll find the mugs and t-shirts with Simple City
I love that.
and,
Well, you can
and
have a
stuff.
simple rebirth every day,
Yes, indeed, we can, of course, every minute for that
every
matter.
minute. It's our choice. I love that. Make a
Yes,
conscious choice. Wow. It's amazing how see something so brief. I really appreciate your time. It is
thank
life
you.
changing because it sometimes just takes a simple reminder of what,
Yeah.
you know, we should do to bring about, I think, more peace, clarity, and like you said, that enlightenment.
Hmm.
Well,
Yes.
keep doing what you're doing. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time and your amazing advice, and we will definitely keep in touch.
Okay, have an
Okay.
amazing day.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.